Hello, hello, everybody. Secular Rarity in the house,
Woo.
enjoying the tunes of the intro, I can tell. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in live. I'm Secular Spirit, and I am an atheist ex-Muslim, trying to basically show how we can enjoy life with meaning and purpose beyond religion. And I am joined by Secular Rarity, friend of the channel. It's been long overdue. So glad to have
Yes.
you back. So, to anyone who doesn't know much about you, and that's a shame, I must say, please tell everyone about yourself.
Yeah, if you don't know much about me, it's probably because you're watching a lot of better people that are much smarter and funnier and better looking, and that's okay. I don't blame you for that. If you have some free time and you're bored, and you just want to kind of lower the content that you're consuming, you can find me on a bunch of places. But currently, I'm one of the hosts on the Atheist Experience. I've been doing that for a while. I've worked with a dozen or so other channels that I could list off and talk about. But one of the biggest things recently that I've been working on is building secular community. And so I'm working with a couple of different nonprofit organizations that are already doing some amazing stuff. And then myself and a couple other people in the Middle Tennessee area, we got together last year and we built this brand new one. And we just had a really cool fundraiser live stream just last week. And we're starting off and just trying to get out there and provide opportunities for people that are non-religious, whether you're an atheist or a humanist or just secular in general. Like there's a lot of cool stuff already happening, and we're just trying to make more of that. So yeah, that's me. So I don't know, go type my name in somewhere. You'll probably see this dumb face. So
Yeah, you can find links for Secular Rarity in the video description, as well as a whole bunch of links for Secular Rising, if you want to check it out there. And I just wanted to say, speaking as someone who is a former religious person, I can say this for me and a lot of other people, that the thing that we miss the most often is the community that we got with our religions. And I think it's so important to start that work of actually going beyond just talking about things online like we're doing now, which I think is still very vital, but the work of actually doing things on the ground to give people substantive places to come together and share and celebrate is a really amazing way to help people get past religion and to show that there is this potential for a meaningful life without it. So I applaud you for those efforts, and I can't imagine it being easy. And so we'll talk about it a little bit more at the end of the video. And I just wanted to mention as well for anyone watching, if you do have any questions for me or Secular Rarity, please leave them in the live chat, and I'll save the best ones, the most interesting ones for us to go through at the end. And maybe we'll go through some as we go along, talking about the big subject for this video. And in case you missed it, the big subject has been the recent announcement from Apostate Prophet, who is one of the most prominent ex-Muslims on YouTube, and I would say on social media in general. His recent announcement that he will soon be converting to Christianity. And as anyone watching my channel knows, I've focused mostly on Islam, but I've been very critical of Christianity as well. I think there's a lot of things common between the two religions in terms of their harms, and let's be honest, the lack of evidence for them actually being true. And so I've called him out in the past. A year ago, I did a video on it. And I did a video talking about his recent announcement a couple of days ago. And I wanted to do this live stream with you, Secular Rarity, because I want to just get an ex-Christian's perspective on it. And we'll get to that in a second. I'm really looking for the conversation. And I just wanted to mention to everyone watching live as well, there is a poll question if you want to vote in it. And the question, which was suggested by you, Secular Rarity, thank you very much. Can you find meaning and purpose in life without God? Yes or no? We were debating adding a third option of it depends on what you mean by meaning and purpose and God. And Secular Rarity's suggestion was put between quotation marks in Jordan Peterson's voice. Unfortunately, there's a character limit. So
YouTube is censoring us. That's what it is. Just say it like it is, man.
censorship.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, feel free to vote in that, and I'll check in on how that poll question is going. Obviously, our answers, I would say, are yes, there is. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So Secular Rarity, what was your impression of that recent announcement from Apostate Prophet? Were you aware of him before that news came out?
Oh yeah. I don't even I don't know that he would even remember, to be honest. I mean, it was a while ago, and he's done so many things since then, but he and I actually co-hosted an episode of The Atheist Experience. I want to say like 3-ish years ago. I could be wrong on that, but it was a little while ago at this point, I believe. But yeah, I had definitely seen a good bit of his content. I had definitely used a bunch of the information that he had provided in various videos over the years to talk about Islam, to push back on that. One thing that, being in the United States, being in the South, obviously Islam is not super prevalent. In case anybody wasn't aware of that demographic, I will let you know. Yeah, we're mostly a lot of Protestant Christianity. And so that is the stuff that affects me the most, and it's the stuff that I've ended up focusing on the most. I mean, for instance, in my city, we actually have the headquarters for the Southern Baptist Convention, even though they recently are having to put it up for sale. All these lawsuits about like abuse and stuff. It's crazy.
Where did that come from, huh?
I know, right? It's so weird. But like the Methodists have their headquarters here, and I want to say like the Presbyterians also have their headquarters. So yeah, we're that flavor more than anything, for sure. That doesn't mean that there aren't harmful ideologies as a part of Islam. There absolutely are. Just like in the places in the world where Christianity may not be super prevalent, there are still harmful ideologies, right? So I definitely used a lot of his content over the years when it came to speaking with various individuals that held to various Islams. Just like Christianity, there's 100 different versions of Islam, despite whatever some of the
There's only the one true
yeah,
Islam.
whatever. Yeah. I've heard that about Catholicism and the Southern Baptists. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But
Slight side tangent, but I've heard from some people, Catholics, saying, "Oh well, Catholicism isn't actually Christianity." I've heard that some Catholics saying that about Eastern Orthodoxy and so on and so forth. So you have that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, the Mormons aren't Christians. The Jehovah's Witness aren't Christians. Scientology is way out there. Let's just all agree on that, at least, right?
At least if there's one thing we can agree on.
Yes, right. That's
Finding
right.
Isn't it all about just finding the common ground to rally together?
Right. To point and tell people, you're wrong. You're but anyway, yeah, the nature of a lot of his content always seemed to me as if he was very interested in the truth of the matter, right? Very interested in the facts on the ground, providing, solid argumentation for holding beliefs. And that focus was directed towards various beliefs that make up Islam, right? Some of which I think on a historical level you can show are false. Some of which I think from an argument, around morality, you could show have problems. Some from a societal perspective, some from a logical perspective. I think there's a lot there, just the same as Christianity, whichever flavor you end up taking. Now, again, Eastern Orthodox is something that is not as prevalent in my area either. It's actually just not something that's super prevalent throughout any of the countries that have kind of a European, history to them, right? Like, it's not super prevalent anywhere in North and South America. There are definitely communities. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Eastern Orthodox isn't a thing. Of course it is. But you are much, much more likely to find either Catholicism or Protestantism, you know, one of those many flavors.
Yeah, and just for context for
Mhm.
everyone, the specific kind of Christianity that Apostate Prophet is going into is Eastern
Eastern
Orthodox. Yeah.
Orthodox, right. And that is, you know, it is something that is a little different from, again, the flavors that I am used to. There's a lot of things in it that I could understand on a community aspect as to why somebody would be driven to it. It doesn't, for me at least, it doesn't answer any of the problems that I have with the other versions of Christianity, right? There's nothing specific to Eastern Orthodoxy that gets past the various logical, philosophical, you know, emotional, community, societal, historical. We can keep listing, right? The problems that exist there still exist. And, you know, exist just the same in Islam and exist just the same in Methodism, which is, you know, my flavor that I came from. So I was a very weak Christian to begin with. I think that's worth pointing out there. By the Eastern Orthodox standard, I am definitely not part of the tribe. my Methodist background would never have allowed me to take communion at their table, which is fine because the Methodist table is open communion, which just means anybody can take. Doesn't matter. We're getting into weird details here, but yeah, I will say this because I do think it's important that we take a moment to say this, which is, I am happy if this is something that provides him comfort. I am happy if when he is engaging in that community, when he is engaging in that study, if this is something that benefits him and allows for him and the people around him to do better. I think that's something we should all be happy about, right? Because we shouldn't want to try to narrow everybody's path and journey into a single pinpoint, because that's the dogmatism that a lot of us were trying to leave behind, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna, you know, call him a bunch of terrible names or anything. I'm not gonna say that he's faking or anything. And I don't think that's helpful if we do say that and we do engage in that. I don't think that's beneficial. You know, if this is something that he has sat down and thought about and he's come to, if he says, look, I don't really care about the truth of it, I care about the way that it makes me feel. Awesome. If he says, hey, I really do care about the truth of it, you guys, and I really found some good evidence. Like, dude, like that's what we're here for. It's just, you know, bring it to us. Happy to have those conversations. I don't think there is an answer that you can give in that vein, though, is the thing. But I'm not going to push back on the people who tell me that the reason that they believe is simply because of faith. Or, for instance, I know a pastor in my area, if you can believe it, you guys, who has straight up looked me in the eyes and said, yeah, my belief in God is illogical, man. Why does that matter? And I'm like, hey, you know what? That's cool. Like, that's fine. If that's where you come to it, I'm not going to push back on that. I'm going to say, no worries. If you come to me and you say like, hey, we found chariot wheels, you know, in the Red Sea, Elliot. And, oh, no.
Noah's Ark in the mountains in Turkey.
No.
To build on your point, I totally agree with you. I mean, everyone should pursue a journey towards finding meaning in life, and the major religions are there for a reason. There's a lot of appeal to them in terms of the comforts they provide, and some would say beyond just the community, the structure they provide too. Mm-hmm. Here's one thing I wanted to ask you about, and this is something I've wrestled with when people say, well, I just take it on faith.
Mm.
And it can be people who are well intentioned in a lot of ways. So they're good people. They want to help others. And this is something I've come across time and time again in my life, where, let's say, just to give you an example from my own life, it's someone who converted to Islam. I used to have a
Mhm.
friend back in my university days. He converted to Islam while I was actually leaving Islam, funnily enough. And
Yeah.
I'm the one who taught him how to pray. So that was an interesting experience because I was doubting it definitely at that point. So I respected his desire to find meaning in his life. But then it somehow came up, the subject of homosexuality.
Mm.
And he said, "Oh well, that's just a sin. Those people are are mentally ill, seduced by the devil." He said all
Mm.
of the classics.
Yeah.
And that's the point where I get a little scared by the leap of faith, because I've said this many times on the channel. The way religions like Islam or Christianity work is they tend to be this, like a package deal,
Mhm.
where you have all these beliefs, but then you're kind of obligated to stick by the others in order to,
Yeah.
have that belief still in the things that you like. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just curious for your thoughts on how you've dealt with that in your experiences with religious people.
Yeah. The first thing I want to bring up is it is well known in psychological contexts that one of the biggest, if not the biggest indicator of whether or not somebody is going to believe any particular conspiracy theory or any particular harmful ideology that doesn't have, sound reasoning behind it, one of the biggest indicators is whether or not they already believe something in that vein. So if there are 10 people in front of you and you don't know anything else about them, and you ask which one of them will believe the conspiracy theory that we never went to the moon, right? If all you know is that out of the 10, 2 of them already believe the earth is flat, or believe that lizard people are controlling governments around, any one of the classics, right? They are, statistically speaking, the ones most likely to believe this next thing. And so this is why, for myself, epistemology is so important. The understanding of how we get to reasoned conclusions, the justifications that we provide or don't provide based on whether or not there is a good understanding of them leading to reliable information, right? That's the whole point about fallacies, is that these are constructions of arguments that make us really feel like they should work. But the problem is we can demonstrate time and time again they don't, right? So if we allow any magical thinking into our system, um, my concern is very similar to yours, which is the data seems to indicate that any of it has such a greater potential for harm, right? Like, I this terminology has been used by a lot of different people. My favorite person that has used this is Dr. Darrell Ray, the man who created Recovering from Religion. But he wrote a book a long time ago, The God Virus, and part of what he was talking about is that right there, and the other part is kind of what you were getting at just a second ago, that a lot of this belief, a lot of these types of thinkings have all this other baggage connected to it, and they just come along with it. And there's nothing you can do about it. Like, there are certain viruses that when you get them, you just start sneezing. You just go to the bathroom a lot, right? That just comes along with the darn thing. There's nothing you can do. And this is very much like that. Now, again, just to focus a little to Eastern Orthodoxy, which, again, folks, I'm happy to say this right here, right now, and I'll tell you a million times over, not an expert on anything, sure not. So please go look up stuff for yourself and double check me. But one of the things about Eastern Orthodox churches that I do find concerning is the focus on tradition and the idea that there is a correct Christianity that traces back to the time of Jesus, and that we can rediscover that, and more importantly, that we should rediscover that and put it into practice correctly, because the view is that the Christianity that was being taught and practiced at that time by Christ, I mean, that's the best one, right? So, you know what technically comes along with that, though, right? I mean, slavery.
Oh, you had to mention that, didn't you? It's so
But it
inconvenient.
but it does. Like, you know, you say what you want, right? I am glad that the majority, the vast majority of Muslims and Christians will go through backflips.
It's not slavery, it's indentured servitude.
And the reason that they do that is because they recognize how atrocious that is. And I'm thrilled for that. I'm thrilled for that. But let me tell you a parable. Let me tell you a story that Jesus supposedly used to teach to his disciples at the time.
Well, just to clarify, is this Jesus is love Jesus that you're speaking of,
Oh,
or
this
another
is
Jesus?
all the Jesuses, you know,
Baby Jesus?
There's only one. There's only one. But the story is about, you know, whether or not the disciples would bring in their slaves at the end of the day and allow their slaves to sit down and dine with them before cooking their meal. And it's fascinating
It
because
is a dilemma, isn't it?
it man, we've all, hey, who hasn't been there, right? You know, what are you gonna do? Like, you know, you gotta have food. I mean, they're the slave, they gotta cook it, you know. The way that Jesus presents this information is not one in a context of saying, like, yeah, so like slavery is bad, right? What Jesus is doing is looking around at the people that are very, very comfortable and familiar with the culture of the day and going like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Slaves, right? That's the way you treat them. And every one of the disciples is like, yes, we understand. We agree. This makes sense to us, because Jesus's Christianity involved slavery, you guys. And that's not great, you know. Now, look, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, I do not believe that there is any main branch of Eastern Orthodoxy that believes slavery is good. I'm just going to say that. I don't think that is the case. That's not. But if your argument is like the Christianity that is closest to Jesus is the one that's correct, which I kind of think is a fair argument. I kind of do agree with the Muslims that are like, well, no, this is what Muhammad preached and taught, and that's the correct version. And it's like, it's a good argument. But it gets really bad the closer you get back. The more fundamental you get in either of these ideologies, the more harmful they become, demonstrably, I think. So, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that always comes to mind for me, and that's a really great point, and this is something that's common in Islam too, because the Muslim apologists have to figure out a way to justify why there's all this slave talk as well. Another thing you'll hear is something along the lines of, well, it's better than just killing the prisoners of war who are going to be the slaves. So that's one argument, that the slaves come from prisoners of war. Well, what do you want us to do? Execute all of them?
Yeah, it's not a great argument.
We're actually being merciful. What are we supposed to do with them?
Right.
So anyway, so you'll see that in Islam as well. But what I also think about is like the well-intended things. And one example that always comes to mind is if you're someone who's an Eastern Orthodox Christian, or you're a Muslim, you believe that there's an afterlife, and you believe that there's a paradise, a heaven, whatever you want to call it. And this is something that really came to mind for me in the veneration of Mother Teresa, for example. And I think you know where I'm going with this, where she had all these centers to take care of the sick and the dying. And the emphasis of this project wasn't healing and helping people recover. It was to ease their transition to the afterlife, because this afterlife is what it's all about in the end, isn't it? So do you see what I mean? It's one of those things where I'm not saying Mother Teresa was some kind of sadist who was like, haha, all these sick children, I'm just going to let them die and suffer. It's because they view this transition as something that is noble and that will bring them closer to God. The suffering will bring those sick and dying closer to God. So it's a good thing. And that's the thing that really scares me too, is how you can take people who are just trying to do the right thing, and then through this lens, they end up doing horrible things and inflicting so much suffering on people. It's really scary. And again, I'm not saying this about Apostate Prophet specifically, but it's this kind of mentality shift that happens when you're a Christian or a Muslim.
Yeah, and I think so the atheist side, the non-religious, the secular, as scary as we are, we always get accused of this type of stuff, that there's nothing preventing us from doing bad things and all of this, it will just turn into just evil, narcissistic nihilists and whatever. And fine, hey, whatever, maybe, I don't know. But the thing that really interests me is the idea of somebody saying, well, you have nothing preventing you. Because, well, I think two sides to that. One, well, I don't actually need anybody preventing me. I've never once in my life needed anything preventing me.
Oh, come on. Secular Rarity, come on. Like, you've never just wanted to go pillage and rape and murder?
I look, okay.
We're being honest here.
Look, I'm telling you this, okay, Spirit. I once had the opportunity to enslave an entire village. I really did. And I was standing right there with the chains, and I just said, and it wasn't, look, I'm gonna be honest. It wasn't because like it was a moral decision. I was just really busy the next day. I had a lot to do, and I was like, keeping all these slaves seems like work. I mean, I'm gonna have to find housing. I'm gonna have to beat them. All of this is gonna be taken out of context.
Oh, you're already screwed. So screwed.
But no, I mean, truly, like the quote from Penn Jillette, which is, I have
prominent atheist, if I'm
prominent atheist, okay. Yes, a prominent atheist magician, and he says, I have murdered and raped all of the people that I want to, which is exactly zero. Exactly zero. There is nothing in this world that is necessary for me to not want to just in mass murder puppies. Nobody has to provide an argument. Nobody needs to make a law. There doesn't need to be some magic that exists. No. Okay. Now, let's go to the other thought, which is, okay, so what you're telling me is that you have something preventing you from doing all of these bad things. Why doesn't it work? In practice around us, let's put aside the philosophical argumentation, okay? We can sit here all day going back and forth. We can talk about utilitarianism. We can talk about deontological constructions, John Rawls, whatever. I don't care, right? We could do all that. But let's just go to it. Let's just move into the space for a second. You're right, man. Secular people, atheists, agnostic, humanists, we don't have anything. Your thing, though, doesn't seem to work still. So what do we do? What do we do when the Southern Baptist Convention has to sell their $30 million headquarters to pay for the lawyers to defend the abusers that they actively hid for decades. Not the victims. The money's not going to pay for the victims. That's a whole different fund. This money is simply to pay for the lawyers to defend the abusers. You want to tell me your morality works?
Well, they're not true Christians.
Hey, you know what? My bad. Hang on. My bad. You're right. Kick them out. Let's go to the Presbyterians. I'm sure they don't have anything like that. Real quick.
Oh, come on. They don't have the same kind of legal budget. You really have to target them.
Oh, no. The Presbyterians actually... Oh, this is weird. They actually did announce a list of people that have been... Okay, hang on. No. There's got to be one here. Let's go to another one. What church do you want to pick? What institution, what organization do you want, you guys? In practice, it seems to be, and this is the bummer. This is the bummer for the religious people, okay? The actual data doesn't seem to shake out even. It seems to shake out worse. So remember that thing about one of the number one indicators about whether or not, somebody's going to believe another harmful ideology or whatever, whether they believe one. Okay, guess what? You want to know one of the number one ways you can determine whether or not an organization has had a scandal of abuse? It's whether or not they're connected to a religious institution, you guys. That is a huge, huge indicator. That should be something that everybody on the religious side is up in arms about on a regular basis. That should not be something that in any way, shape, or form divides us. If the Mormons are abusing children, we stop it. Period. End of sentence. It does not matter what your creed is. That should be something we all easily get behind. If you are defrauding hundreds, thousands of people out of millions of dollars because you are lying to them and telling them to not go get medical treatment, to not go receive the best scientific medical care we've got, and they die because you should go to jail. I don't give a shit what religion you're spouting is true. I don't care what book. Now, again, all I'm going to ask is, if we really want to see whether or not your system does this, whether or not your system gives us these answers to stopping all this terrible stuff, let's look at the list. Let's look at the list and see what non-religious, atheist, humanist, secular institutions have been guilty of these crimes against humanity, not just like, oh yeah, there's a law that says you're not allowed to lie to people. Like, I mean, great, but like, again, anybody ever want to come argue like, oh no, lie to people, tell them that you will heal their daughter's cancer and then watch that child die. Tell me that that's not a bad person. Like, I'll fight that fight any day. Anybody wants to, but yeah, in practice, you're still wrong. So how can we sit back in the secular community and not push back against that? Again, I'm glad that you have found happiness, whoever it is that is in that space, right? I know many believers. I have many friends that are believers. I talk to them regularly. I literally was grabbing barbecue with one just a couple days ago. Great guy. And it is totally fine that somebody says this makes me happy. It makes me feel good. It provides me with reasons to be a good person and all that. No problem. But don't tell me it's the only way. And don't tell me it's better.
The devil's in the details, as they might say. Just to kind of share with you, because we've never talked about it between the two of us, the reason why I started becoming interested in specifically Apostate Prophet's transition to Christianity, before I knew he was going to transition to Christianity, was when I'd been following him for years, even before I started my own YouTube channel. And I couldn't help but notice that he did a ton of videos with someone who's a Christian apologist, preacher of sorts, David Wood. You're familiar with the name.
Oh, yeah.
And okay, I'll put it this way. I personally couldn't imagine having a channel devoted to criticizing Islam and sharing the screen, sharing the stage with someone who is promoting and defending a religion that, as you very well, like very eloquently kind of condensed down, had so many problems. And here's the thing that kind of mystified me: had a lot of the same exact problems as Islam, as we've talked about. So I couldn't wrap my head around that. Like, could you, I don't know, could you maybe explain it in this sense? Because one of the arguments I've heard from people in the space, I've seen it in comments, I've seen it actually from other ex-Muslim content creators, is, well, yeah, okay, so yeah, there might be some shared problems between them, but Islam is way worse, and I don't see anyone else standing up to help us ex-Muslims, former Muslims, besides the Christians. So why not band together with them? So what do you think of that argument?
So there's a couple of different pieces there, and here's one I want to take first, which is the idea of being able to work with groups for a common goal that don't always completely align with us on things, right?
Which you're going to have to do at some point.
And I knew you would say that, and that's and I think that's worth. I think it's worth that we at least take a moment to sit there and say, yeah, guys, look, okay, you almost guaranteed will never be in the place in life where your side and your ideology by itself for a singular goal or purpose is able to actually generate enough enough sway in society to make progress. And we have to make sure that we aren't arbitrarily cutting off our allies. So again, there's a pastor in my area of an LGBTQ affirming Methodist church. They are regularly out in the community helping unhoused people. They are constantly trying to bring in people of various minorities, constantly helping refugees, constantly telling people that, you know, you are loved and you are welcome, and that type of messaging. Look, are they wrong about a soul? Okay, hang on. Yes, they are atheists. Don't yell at me. Yes, okay, I'm with you. Are they incorrect about the afterlife? In my opinion, yes. I don't think there is one. Okay, but those are my people. Those people, those believers are on my side, and they are the ones that are pushing back against things like the Christian nationalism that is not American, and it is not Christian. It is something wholly unique and perverted and disgusting, something that has harmful ramifications for Christians, for believers of all stripes, not to mention all the non-believers like me. Like, it has harmful ramifications for straight white dudes, just the same as it does for black trans men or Latino lesbians. Like, it's a bad ideology. So we have to make sure that we can work together, even if there's somebody that isn't 100% lockstep with us. Again, that's some of the dogmatism that a lot of us were trying to push back against. So I can see in many instances why we would work together. Now, I'm going to say something really extreme here as an example. Okay. I am not saying that this is AP or David Wood. I am not saying that.
Oh, it's going to get clipped up.
I know it will, but it doesn't matter. But I'm just putting that out there, right? Like, there is a point, though, right? There is the point at which you go, oh, I don't know if I work with you, right? Like, you're not really pushing in the same direction that I am. Like, sure, we may both agree in this instance. Like, let's say, I don't know, this Disney movie isn't the best one or this particular Marvel movie is like one of the worst in the franchise. Okay. We might agree on that, and that's great. And like, here we are, and we're fighting for better script writing. Right. And then we go over here and we're like, yeah, and the music sucked too. And it's like, hey, funny enough, same page. And then somebody says like, right. And we shouldn't have black people in movies, and it's like, whoa, 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 you know, like that's there. So just because we need to make sure that we work with people that aren't completely in our camp, and we have a broad coalition across the board for all kinds of different fights that we have. It doesn't mean that we just completely open up the doors and allow in any and all ideologies, right? It's the paradox, the tolerance of intolerance, right? You can't have ideologies that you know, at their core have that, right? So you can't, unfortunately, have somebody on your side who's like, yeah, man, I really do think, you know, abortion should be a right for people. And you're like, yeah, man, that's awesome. And then they're like, yeah, and I also believe we should just murder all the people that aren't Muslim. It's like, whoa, wait, what? Like, I'm yeah, got the first one though. Like, cool on that, man. But that it doesn't work. It inherently will eat itself and will destroy itself, you know? Now I want to talk about whether or not Islam or Christianity is worse than each other, you know, all that. That I think is such a weird, I think that's kind of a weird math equation to try and do. And I guess we could just look at individual numbers, like how many people have died at the hands of somebody who expressed one of the ideologies. I guess you could look at that. I guess you could look at like long-term geopolitical impacts. Like I would probably argue that, and you know, don't get me wrong, there's been quite a lot of colonization in the name of Islam over the years, but there's been quite a lot in the name of Jesus Christ too. Like let's be honest, right? God, gold, and glory, you know, and not necessarily in that order, but you know, that was a big deal for the Spanish conquistadors. Like that was something they actively talked about, bringing Christ to the world. So I mean, it's hard to know exactly which one cuts the line of like worst ideology for a lot of different reasons. I guess if you really, really put my feet to the fire, I'd say in the scriptures that are considered part of Islam, the foundation,
Canonical, yeah, the
right?
foundational ones, yeah.
I would say, okay, maybe there's a few more things that are directly shitty. Like they just outright say it, right? They're just like outright, yeah, kill that son bitch. And it's like, okay, so that's not great. In the Christian ones, they get around it. I mean, they're like, hey, so, you know, it'd be real great if somebody could take them out back, you know? It's like, I don't know, right? Like they're both bad. And that's where I think the issue lies. If we care about reasoning, if we care about truth, if we care about you know, flourishing of people, right, the minimization of suffering, if those things matter to us, unfortunately, you can list things all day, but they both look the same. They both shake out on the exact same level. They are both on a side that perpetuates harmful ideology, perpetuates poor critical thinking, and have both been the cause of untold amounts of suffering, you know? So I don't know, man. Like if we're really going to, I'm sure there is probably an ideology out there, a religion out there that is like, without question, the worst. But I don't know that we need to go that hard looking at it, right? Like, let me put this out there because we don't talk about this enough. Rastafari, interesting little religion, not practiced very, very widely around the world. One that, though, has a lot of people that know about it, at least, right? I'd say there are more people out there that have at least had some familiarity with Rastafari, as opposed to a lot of different religions. Now, we could go deep through the ideology. We could point out the incorrect, you know, foundations of it, believing that a king of Ethiopia a long time ago was the actual second coming of Jesus Christ, Haile Selassie I. Yeah, he wasn't. He died. They thought he was going to get, you know, like taken up into heaven. That didn't happen. They also say that they're like the lost tribe of Israel. That's not really a thing. There's a lot of history that really talks about how that's just like a trope that's been used by people, for a long time. The Mormons and the Hebrew Israelites actually kind of use that trope too. We could talk about the fact that Rastafari is really misogynistic. Actually, it's incredibly homophobic. Like we could go in depth about all of that and then try to calculate the number of people that Rastafari has provided a positive messaging for, because reggae music is just basically just religious music, right? Like reggae music is like gospel music. Gospel music is specifically focused on like Jesus Christ and stuff, and reggae music is actually focused on Jah, Jah Almighty. So, I mean, we could do that calculation, or we could just go to the fact that it also traces its roots to myth and legend and things that aren't true and can't be shown historically to have happened. And we could just go to the various harmful practices that they exhibit today. Like, is Rastafari worse than Hinduism? I don't know, man. They're both wrong and they're both bad. I think that's an okay stance to have. So,
well, to go back to your first point as well. So, in terms of collaborating or doing things with someone who, let's say you're an atheist and they're a Christian or another faith. So to me, it comes down to also the substance of the collaboration that you're doing. Like, let's say you're doing a video together addressing with a Christian, addressing the harms of Islam. So here's the thing where I also kind of see a distinction. Let's say you're a former Muslim and you talk about how, well, Muslims believe that the Prophet Muhammad rode on a winged horse and this horse flew from here to there and then he ascended to heaven. And the conversation of the Christian is, well, that's just ridiculous that there's a winged horse. Can you believe it? And then the Christian, so you're the ex-Muslim in this case. You hear the Christian saying, well, that's just ridiculous. There's no proof for that. Unlike the resurrection of Jesus, where there's plenty of evidence. So you have option A and option B. So option A is to say nothing and to just keep going. Option B is to say, wait a second, what is the proof for the resurrection of Jesus then? And having a meaningful conversation about that. So that's where I also see the distinction. And my impression has been that Apostate Prophet has largely been in the first category of just saying nothing.
Yeah. And again, I think, there are some times and places where I can understand, for instance, again, I do, one of the things that I do is I host in-person discussions around the city once a month, and we bring religious people and non-religious people together to have, cordial but challenging conversations. Like, it's not just us sitting up there agreeing with each other. We're actively pushing back and expressing a difference of opinion.
Which is great.
Yeah. And the goal though is not to be rude to people. It's not to push people down. It's simply an exchange of ideas. We're trying to show people, hey, look, you can do this in a way that's meaningful, and you can do this in a way where, hey, we don't agree, but we can kind of tease each other and have fun and learn and all that good stuff. But so, I do think there are times where, I might disagree with something that a believer says, and maybe in this instance, I'll just let that one go. Like, for instance, we're talking about we're having a conversation about whether or not we think LGBTQ rights are important, right? And let's say I've got this one very fundamental, evangelical, charismatic Christian that's saying, well, I think all gays should be blah, 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 whatever, right? And then I've got this, real liberal, real, affirming other Christian over here. And they say, look, man, I just think, all people bear the image of God, and that's why I think we should extend our love and compassion to our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. Look, man, I don't think the image of God thing is real, but I'm gonna let that one slide. Right?
But you do draw the line somewhere.
Well, and I think,
as I'm understanding, yeah.
yes, and I do think where you were drawing the line a second ago, I do think is a place that I would probably put it too. If we're having the conversation about the historical reliability of the Quran, and somebody says to me, "Well, SR, we've got the original manuscripts," and I would go, "Oh, that's wild, because I don't think that's what the scholarship says." Right? If the Christian comes up to me, right, and says, "Yeah, not like the Bible. See, we've got those, SR. We've got the originals of all the gospels." I'd be like, maybe we can play this game if you want to be like, well, the reliability of the gospels is more than the reliability of the hadiths. Like, maybe, like, we can sit there and we can look at that, and it's like 50 years for the gospels versus like 75 years for some of the earliest hadiths. Like, whatever. Like, I guess we could do all that all day, but in both scenarios, what we do not have is the chain of reliability that the apologists are telling us that we do. And that's not me saying that. Again, I'm not the expert on this, you guys. I'm going to the Christians that are the ones that are scholars. I'm going to the Muslims that have been studying this stuff for years, okay? Like, it's not my fault that even like Zakir Naik is saying like, we shouldn't use these arguments anymore. It's like, that's
I love that you know who he is, by the way.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Like, that's not on me. Like, William Lane Craig is the one that says, hey, I don't think these arguments actually move the needle for people. I think they just bolster people's beliefs that they already hold. I'm not saying that. He is. You talk to them if you've got problems. The believing scholars come up and they present this information, and the information that they are presenting does not align with the intensity that so many of the apologists, both on the Muslim and the Christian side, are presenting it. Like, guys, I'm just telling you this. No, we don't. No, we don't. We don't have those original manuscripts that you think we do. None of them are actually connected to these people. None of them attest to that. The ones that we have are later. I mean, it's just like all of this. And this is the thing, though. This is the thing. Okay. Now, I swear I'll shut up after this, but I talk way too much. But you don't have to have any of that, and still you can keep your faith. In fact, your faith will be stronger, in my opinion. You don't have to believe there was an actual global flood. You don't have to believe that. You can still believe in your God. You can still believe in your Jesus. You can find all your hope, your meaning, your community, your purpose, everything that you want. You don't have to defend that. You don't have to hold to any of that stuff, you guys. Like, the Quran was not compiled in Muhammad's lifetime. Just pretty freaking confident. You don't have to believe that. You can still believe that the teachings in there are great. I might disagree on some, but hey, again, you don't have to hold to such literal interpretations of these things. You don't have to hold to some of these dates. You don't have to hold to an actual historical exodus. You can have all the things you are getting out of your religion right now and not have to try and defend slavery, you guys. Just think about that, though. I mean, if I believed in anything that made me have to regularly try to defend slavery, I would just be like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, See, because when I was a Christian, again, maybe I was a weak Christian. That's fine. Maybe I never believed. But when I was a Christian, somebody would be like, man, well, the Bible has slavery in it. I'd be like, so? And they'd be like, well, your God said slavery is cool. And I'd be like, nah, people were just mistaken. they did do the slavery and they did attribute that to God, but that is not what God wanted. And then they'd be like, well, why didn't God stop it? And I'd be like, hey, man, you should really just ask God. I'm not going to fight you on this one, man. Is it in there? Yeah. Is it weird and gross? Yeah. Is my God bigger and better than that? Of course. Like, is your God that weak that he had to take Moses and the Israelites out of Egypt to Jerusalem? Is your God so weak that Muhammad actually had to split the moon? Is that really the case? Your God couldn't be better than that? Whatever, man. I don't know, but I'm not trying to help the believers. I'm not trying to like bolster your side. Like, you guys figure out your own insecurities and stuff. But seriously, just, you don't have to fight that hard on those things, guys. Like, it doesn't matter. You can still have all the great things that you want. I'm going to say, though, again, I think we still have better answers. I think there are better answers on a humanist side, on a non-religious side. I think we've got the data for that. But if I'm wrong, show me. I mean, I'll convert. I really care about like whether or not stuff is true. So it's going to be hard.
You heard it here first, folks. Secular Rarity is open to being converted. So give us your best arguments.
That's right.
And, I mean, you touched on something that also was something that Apostate Prophet talked about. And I've seen a few people in the live chat mentioning it. And it's this whole question of atheism. So you alluded to it a little bit earlier on how, you there's nothing stopping you from, going around enslaving an entire village, so on and so forth. You do it as much as you want to, which is zero. So what would you say to people like Apostate Prophet, who transition from Islam through atheism to Christianity, and sometimes the other way around, from Christianity to Islam, where they talk about how, atheism, it just didn't fulfill me. I couldn't feel happy or hopeful in life without having that hope that comes through religion, through God. And I did save this question from the live chat. Seb Oz, thank you for the question. Apostate Prophet said he suffered from anxiety issues. Maybe the reason he needs a religion is to help him deal with that. So I just wanted to ask you, what do you think of this argument that, well, with the atheistic mindset, life is just nihilism. It just ends at death. Everyone you know is going to die. Everything that you do is going to be forgotten. So what's the point? Like, how do you overcome that without turning to religion?
Yeah. And I know there's at least a few of the non-religious people that are kind of rolling their eyes at that question. But I do think it's worth us talking about this. And I am a big fan of saying this, and I didn't come up with this quote, of course not, but we should always look in the mirror before we look out the window. So I'm a big fan of pointing out where I think the secular community, the atheist community as a whole, has not done a great job. And that is right here, which is, for many years now, we've done the deconstruct. We've done the debunk. We've done the debate. But we haven't built up our side. We have not tried to provide answers to some of these meaningful questions, and I think it's worthwhile that we do pay attention to that. I agree with you, though, Carl. Yeah, atheism is really just this super duper narrow thing, though. Like, I don't go to atheism to find hope, meaning, and purpose. Like, I'll just tell you that, guys. And if there's anybody out there that is like, well, there it is, atheists don't have hope, meaning, and purpose. No, listen carefully to what I said. I don't go to atheism to find those things. I am an atheist, right? Where I go is to something like secular humanism, now, if you want to say, hey, look, well, that's just a religion. I mean, technically, the people that came together and wrote the first secular humanist manifesto did call it a religion. In a legal and political sense, it is definitely a religion. In a societal context, maybe not. Kind of depends on what your definition of religion is. Mine, by just inherently, has a belief in like supernatural stuff. So if you don't have a belief in supernatural stuff, I don't consider you a religion. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You want to say I have a religion? I don't care. That doesn't bother me. That doesn't make me upset, right? So give me whatever label you want. But it's not my lack of belief in a God. It's not even my because there are many versions of a deity. I absolutely take the positive stance, does not exist, right? Outright, happy to say it. There are versions, though, that I take the stance of, hey, I don't actually know on that one. I don't know on that specific version. Maybe. Seems unlikely to me, though, and I don't currently believe in it. And that's what makes me an atheist. But when I wake up in the morning and I feel sad, I don't think about there not being a God. That doesn't make any sense. I do all the other things in my life that are important and valuable. I think about people that I care about and care about me. I think about the scientific data that we have been able to gather and demonstrate time and time again about why people feel these feelings, or what are very helpful techniques to utilize whenever having these kinds of moments. I go talk to my secular therapist on a regular basis. Like, that's what I do. And I get all of that from a non-religious lens. Nothing about any of that stuff comes from the Bible. There's some things that are found throughout all religions that are just common things for people. Like, for instance, if you're going to make an ideology that talks about people, and you're not going to talk about what to do sometimes when you're sad, your ideology isn't going to last very long, because we all get kind of sad sometimes. So, like, of course, there's stuff in Islam that's like, here's how to like gather together and have fun and love each other. Because again, if you didn't have that, your ideology wouldn't stick around. It wouldn't be here long enough for us to remember it and push back against the harm that it generates, right? You have to have that sugar. Otherwise, the rest of the poison doesn't go down.
Very well said. Yeah, that's the package deal.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have it kind of mixed in.
Right. And that's where the concern is for me. That's where the harm is for me, right? Is because I know the likelihood of that happening. That's not a slippery slope, by the way. That's not me saying simply because of this, it leads to this and this and this. No, it is saying the statistical likelihood is higher. And that is something I think we can minimize. And doing so is valuable. Doing so, minimizing the risk of harm, especially if that harm is maximized on a lot of levels. That's huge, you guys. If we can cut that 80% risk down to 25, that's big. That doesn't mean all the harm in the world goes away. It doesn't mean everybody's suddenly at, utopia, peaceful, loving each other and crap. No, of course not. Like, we still have stuff to work on, but we are now utilizing methods that are more likely to get us to that goal and more likely to achieve that faster, right? And that's all good. That's all good stuff, But yeah, I'm sorry. I just keep rambling for like 20 minutes straight, man. You got to shut me up at some point.
Well, the great thing is that you just gave all the haters more and more material to clip up. So
that's true.
I didn't want to get in the way of that, to be honest.
That's right. You gotta, look, hey, I judge my level of success by the amount of hate I generate around me. I'm just kidding.
That's a good way of looking at it.
That's right. The more people telling me I need to sit down and shut up, the more I think I'll keep talking.
I think what would be great to do now is to just check in on the poll question to see how it's going. So the poll question, which you can still vote for in the live chat, is: can you find meaning and purpose in life without God? 70% say yes.
Woo! That's good.
all of them
Good.
heathen atheists, I'm sure.
Yeah.
30% say no.
Right. And you're all 30% of you are going to hell. I'm just letting you know.
So, yeah, I mean, also now is a good point to talk a little bit about that. Question is a vital one for me, and it's really the reason why I started this YouTube channel, because to me it's beyond just talking about the problems of Islam and
Mhm.
the traumas I experienced from growing up Muslim, which I've definitely talked about. But if you wanted to distill what I do on this channel to that one key question, it is, can we find meaning and purpose in life beyond religion, without God? And this is, for anyone wondering, why am I talking about Apostate Prophet? Like, why have I done a few videos about him at this point? It's because he's come to the conclusion of a very different answer to that question. And his answer is, no, you can't. Like, for him personally, he couldn't do it.
Mhm.
And this is the way you'll understand this, because you've been on the online space for so long. The way things work is, whatever movement it is, whatever ideology it is, there's something about human nature where we connect it to the people who are most popular representatives of it. So as atheists, I'm sure you've come across this many times. People will say, well, Richard Dawkins is a transphobe, or Richard Dawkins is a doddering old fool, or as if we're all, painted with the same brush.
Right.
I don't agree with that characterization of, well, that person is like that, so we all are. But we have to accept that this is unfortunately a part of human nature, that when you become a prominent figure in a space, there is an element of responsibility towards it, in my opinion. And part of that responsibility is that if you do certain things that are that others find inconsistent or problematic, that you're going to get called out for it, because ideologies get connected with people. I wish that wasn't the case, to be honest with you. I wish it wasn't, but this is the world we live in. And so this is why I've talked about Apostate Prophet, because he is one of the most prominent figures in the space. And to just give you an example, so one of my subscribers sent me a DM telling me that my name came up on The Line, which is Matt Dillahunty, formerly of the Atheist Experiences call-in channel.
Yeah.
And in one of his super chats, someone recommended my channel. Said, you should check out Secular Spirit. He's ex-Muslim, Palestinian, whatever. He's a great person to have on. And I will criticize Matt Dillahunty for this response, because I think it wasn't well thought out. And to be honest with you, I don't blame him, because it was answering super chats 3 hours into a live stream.
Sure.
None of us are at our best capacity at that point.
Yeah.
So I'll be forgiving of that. But he basically said, never heard of him. Well, he's heard of me now, which is kind of cool. Never heard of him. But then he pivoted to talking about how ex-Muslim doesn't really mean much to him, which, fair enough. An ex-Muslim could be so many other things. It's just one aspect. But he started talking about Apostate Prophet. And he started talking about Ayan Hirsi Ali and how they converted to Christianity. And to me, it was kind of revealing that, the ex-Muslim space is so small, because you deal with a lot of criticism from Muslims, obviously, but also a lack of awareness, because especially in the West, there's definitely a phenomenon where people want to protect Muslims against xenophobia, Islamophobia, against, far-right white nationalist hate towards foreigners, and some of that is directed at Muslims. So I get where that's coming from. But the sad thing is, and this is my concern, is that when people see Apostate Prophet and he's now transitioned to Christianity, that it's already difficult to get through on what the problems of Islam are.
Yeah.
And then when you see, well, this person pivoted to this other religion, it's going to be so much more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it sure doesn't help our side. Let's be honest on that, right? That being said, of course, Apostate Prophet, and he said this himself, by the way. I'm not saying anything that's crazy. He has never represented in its entirety the ex-Muslim community, right?
It's very true.
You know? And just the same as also nothing crazy. I Pretty sure I've heard Matt say this a few times as well. He does not represent the atheist community, you know? I think all of us, I think every single one of us know, yes, but also kinda, right? Like, sure, we all know we're all individuals, we represent ourselves, all that good stuff. But also, you know, I mean, there's no way in the world that either Matt or AP would disagree with the statement. You guys are pretty high up there in the space, right? Like, if we're gonna name 5 people, okay, ex-Muslim, former Christian, atheist, out there on YouTube, debate, you know, if we're gonna name people in that space, do you guys not think your name comes up? I mean, just be honest, right? Like, come on, you know that. You know, if you ask Seth Andrews or genetically modified skeptic, if you ask somebody like that, that same question, I bet you they'd probably say something similar to AP and Matt. I bet you they'd probably say like, "Hey, I don't represent the atheist community, you know? I represent me, but I recognize that I am a fairly prominent individual in that space, and that's why I behave in the manner that I do, right? Now, I am in style for sure a lot closer to genetically modified skeptic and Seth Andrews. And I'm saying it like that specifically so that when I get off this stream, I'll kind of pat myself on the back and be like, yeah, SR, thinking atheist, GMA. Yeah, that sounds like a good list. But those 3 names have never been put together like that before, guys. I'm just letting you know. But like, my style is one that is much more trying to be silly, trying to be compassionate, trying to be, you know, overly kind sometimes even, because I feel that that is something that's incredibly, incredibly important for our side right now. I think that's something that can really get through to a lot of people. And I also think it's something that we are up against, unfortunately. You know, there's a lot of just the general view of atheists are just, you know, mean, shitty people. So, like, I'd like to change that a little bit. I'd love if people thought of, you know, less of somebody yelling and being angry, and debunking, and more of somebody that's laughing and opening their arms and, you know, providing opportunities for people to commune with each other. You know, that's what I want people to think of when they think of an atheist, when they think of somebody that's non-religious. That's where my focus is. I think we still need the people that go hard. I do think we need that. But again, if you've been paying attention at all this damn video, you probably know what I'm going to say, which is there's still a line there. There's still a point at which we have gone past the values that we supposedly agree with, right? If we believe in changing minds and doing that in the most effective way, then we should recognize that if we're engaging in certain practices and they're not effective, we should change. If that's what we want. If we don't want that, that's fine. I know people and I have friends and I like them. Trust me, that these friends say to me, "Hey, SR, ain't really interested in changing minds. I'm kind of just interested in going out there and smacking down some bad arguments by some really crappy people." And I'm like, "Yeah, cool, man. I get you. You like, do your thing, man. You know, all right, you know." That being said, you know, do I think that is the thing that's going to be the most effective?
I think that's a
No.
question that gets forgotten so often
Yeah.
in this space, because I see it a little bit in the atheist ex-Christian space, but
Mhm.
I can't speak about it too much. But when I see content that's targeted against Islam, criticizing Islam, it's just really sad to see here's the thing that's missing, I think, from a lot of people who are in this discourse, whether they're former Muslims or people coming at it from different religions. We forget that Muslims, people who are currently Muslim, are the biggest victims of the religion. You have to remember you're talking about people who were born into it, who've had it drilled into them from as soon as they could walk and talk, who've been indoctrinated to believe in a hell, to believe that homosexuality is an abomination, to believe that Jewish people are the devil's minions.
Right.
And these are things you and I oppose, obviously, and a lot of us oppose watching this video today. But the thing to remember about it is these people are human beings in the end of the day. These are human beings who believe in a lot of bad ideas. And what we can't forget, and this is again to your point of like, what do we want to accomplish as our goal? Sure, different strokes for different folks.
Totally.
You can go a bit more aggressive. You can. I would never go as aggressive, for example, as Matt Dillahunty, to just name one example. I don't think you would either.
Not my thing.
But I think remembering the other person's humanity is something that can never be forgotten, and that's another aspect of it where I feel like in many instances someone like Apostate Prophet has forgotten that. You can say that there's a lot of legitimate reasons for that maybe could have been part of the motivations for him to shift to Christianity. But in the end of the day, even if I understand why someone has a lot of anger and hatred towards Muslims, and I had that phase myself, that doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
And
we should, as much as it hurts, as much as it takes time and effort and it's a bummer, if we really do have the goals that we've stated, right? If we really do have the goals of, changing minds, education, reducing suffering, all those things. Like for me, okay, and maybe this is just something people don't know about me specifically, but it's out there. I've said it once or twice. Sure, it's the first time. But for me personally, I do not have the goal of eradicating Christianity. I do not have the goal of ridding the world of religion in its entirety. I do not wake up in the morning and think to myself, if only there were no Muslims. That isn't where my head is, you guys. Honestly, my focus is that more people in this world, to spread as far as we possibly can until it is just encoded in our frickin' DNA because evolution is a fact. I want the best critical thinking. I want people to have, as a background, I want them to be constantly providing the best argumentation, the best justification and evidence, reasoning, logical understanding of the world. I want everyone to have the best tools at their disposal for making decisions, because I really do believe the best outcomes come from that. Now, I could be wrong on that belief, you guys. I could be wrong on all of that. Please help me, because if you change my mind on that, guess what you've done? You've helped me with my goal. Now, I do think as a byproduct of that goal, I think there's a lot of things that are going to disappear. One of which, for instance, I would say religion. I would say religion. If everybody in the world comes over to the side, if I'm victorious and I achieve my goal 100%, yeah, I'd say that's a world where there isn't religion. But I'd also say that's a world where there isn't homeless people in a society where we could actually just do something about it.
There wouldn't be the mass starvation.
Isn't that wild? Yeah.
In a world where we have an abundance of food.
There wouldn't be a country that undeniably has more than enough power, money, and capability to do something about it, but every day still wakes up knowing full and well that children are being shot in their schools. That's my country right now, by the way. I just bring that up casually to people every so often. Like somebody will say something else, be like, yeah, but apparently we're all okay with that. And they'll be like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, just think about it. Like, why have we not literally done everything in our power to stop this? And they're like, well, what do we do? And I'm like, well, I'm not sure, but do you see anybody getting together and thinking about it? And they're like, not really. I'm like, right, that's my point. Like, we all apparently are just okay with that, but not if we're utilizing good critical thinking skills and we have the focus of minimizing suffering. If that's the world that we all live in and we all want to take part in that, we'd all wake up and go, oh my God, let's stop this somehow, some way. Is it metal detectors? Is it rounding up the guns? Is it changing the education system in its entirety? Is it providing universal basic income so that people don't feel the need to go out and do these violent acts just to survive? I don't know. There's probably 1,000 options, and why not just try any one of them? Let's just do anything. But yeah, I always try to go back to that goal. I can't say I'm perfect at it. I can't say that, I'm always making sure that I'm doing it in the best way. But because my goal is specifically focused on critical thinking, because my goal is, focused on education and positive growth for all of us, right? Whether you're in my camp or not, I just want all of us to do better. It leads me to a side that's more in line with somebody like David McCraney. David McCraney wrote this awesome book called How to Change Minds, and it is fascinating. And I'll spoil a little bit of it, but not too much, because everybody should go get it and read it. But like, it's a lot more of compassion that moves the needle than beating people down. It just really does seem to be the case. That's just
That's
the very
very Christ-like of you, I must say.
Look, all right, I got some nails. Hang on, we'll just get up here. I'm sorry. I'm just
you had me until you mentioned universal basic income. I didn't realize you were a dirty damn commie as well. Just kidding. I agree. I agree. That's something definitely worth looking into.
There's a lot of different, there's a lot of different answers on all of these subjects, right? And just to kind of go back around, a little bit to the, whether or not atheism gives you this hope, meaning, purpose stuff. Like, I just flat out say it. Like, yeah, probably not. I don't really know anybody that I can think of that's an atheist that I'm like, hey, is it because you don't believe in God that you're happy right now? They'd be like, not really, There's other things that are deeply important. And that is true, by the way, for the religious people as well.
For sure.
They don't just find the value in life from the scripture and from their belief in, heaven or whatever. Like, there's a lot of other things that make them a complete person. And those are the things that I think are, honestly, at the end of the day, they're secular. They don't have anything to do with a religion. You going on a walk with your dog doesn't have anything to do with God. It just doesn't, So those are the things that our side needs to do a better job of highlighting, and our side needs to do a better job of providing those spaces for our people. And I'm willing to say that, like, we just haven't done that great of a job for a while. No. But also, like, I mean, we weren't like legal the whole time either, like, you weren't allowed.
Give us some time. Give us some time is what I would say. At like least another generation years. Or two.
Right. Yeah. Come on.
At least a century, actually. Yeah.
And a crusade, at least. That'll really help it.
Tiger's Eye Lady says, first time I've seen Secular Rarity, and I like him.
Well, thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you on the show. So there's a couple of live chat questions I wanted to go through. I think most of them are tailored to me, but feel free to chime in if you would like. So this question from Lebel Thank you for your lovely contribution to the live chat, by the way, LaBelle. I have a question, please. If you claim to be secular, then why is there spirit in your channel name? So, for anyone wondering about this, it was intentionally an oxymoron or a contradiction, because I think that religion has had this hegemony, this monopoly over spirituality, which I would define as the search for meaning and purpose in life for millennia, for the vast majority of human history. But I don't think it has to be that way. I think there is a way of looking at those deep, important questions of life, of why am I here? What do I do with my life? How do I treat others? How do I handle suffering and misfortune that happens to me? I think there's a secular way of handling all those things, of finding meaning in them, in your journey in this life, the only life that we know we have for sure, which is why I picked the oxymoron name, knowing that there would be several people questioning it and criticizing it, but so be it. So thank you for the question, LaBelle.
LaBelle was getting excited in the chat.
Oh, LaBelle is a big fan of you.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Mighty Christian of you too, by the way, LaBelle. Just gotta say. So another question. I'm gonna let you handle this one. All right. So this one's from Bo Rudder. Bo Rudder asked this one as well. Secular Spirit, can you say Muhammad was? I can't say the rest because I'm a secret Muslim. I can't do it. I can't do it. Oh, I almost said it by accident too. So thank you for that question.
You almost got caught, man.
You exposed me, Bo Rudder. So Bo Rudder's other question was this: why is an atheist appealing to morality when all is permissible?
Yeah, I would just say, Bo Rudder, I don't agree with that. I don't agree that all is permissible. So we can have that conversation if you want, but I will just say this to start off, Bo Rudder. You might, based on that question, you might be starting at a disadvantage. So I could just put my cards on the table and let you know, like, I'm an anti-realist when it comes to morality. So I don't understand morality from the perspective of stance independence. So you might want to look into that a bit more, because like that question just isn't something that makes any sense to an anti-realist. Dr. Lance Bush is somebody that you could get some information in that vein. So, but yeah, I would just disagree. I don't think all is permissible. So, and atheism isn't like a morality thing, by the way. Like I think
as
that's
we
important.
discussed, yeah. I think that's a fundamental misunderstanding that a lot of people make, including ex-Muslims who turn to Christianity, like Ayan Hirsi Ali and Apostate Prophet. I'm basing this on things that they have said publicly.
Yeah, and you can, because what a lot of people want is and I know I might just be,
Thank you, LaBelle. Sorry, I just had to.
Atheist world will look like Mad Max. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. I will say, okay, look, just throwing this out because I haven't seen any of the newer ones, by the way. Like,
you're missing out.
Really,
they're both pretty good.
The originals I loved. I saw the originals when I was young because they came out.
What's the same director, by the way?
Is it really?
Yeah.
No way. Okay. Well, all right. I might just go watch that after this. It's great movie, fun concept. I just, again, like, I would just say, like, LaBelle, we really need to talk about like moral realism. We really should have that conversation one day, because I think the problem with moral realism is that there's just actually no connection to anything that makes sense for us in reality. Now I could be wrong on all this. I sure could be, but I just don't understand how anyone could ever make moral claims that aren't entirely focused on one's stance about it. I'm not exactly an emotivist, but I do like the concept. I think it makes more sense to me that morality at the end of the day is basically just us being like, yay, or gross, like it's more about us just kind of expressing how we feel about certain things rather than it is, like if I feel differently about, this cake, then I won't enjoy it, right? That's closer to morality than like if I feel differently about the color of this pen, it's not going to change. Like the color's still, I might like the color, I might not like the color, but it is still the wavelength that it is. So I don't know. I'm just going to get off on a tangent.
So yeah, thank you for the questions though, everyone. One last question. I'll kind of just touch on this quickly because I'll explain why. So BKP 4040 at Secular Spirit, do you think AP will continue to be a Zionist while his new religious brethren are being ethnically cleansed? Wow. Okay. So the reason I wanted to highlight this question is because I am Palestinian. And this is speaking for me. I don't want to speak for Secular Rarity here. This is just me. I do oppose what Israel is doing in Gaza. But that is not my motivation for why I criticize Apostate Prophet, because he happens to support what Israel is doing. For me, I have talked about it on my channel, but I do see them as separate issues. And I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how Apostate Prophet justifies it in his mind. But what I will say is, I do think saying that the issue of Palestine and Israel comes down to religion, and this is me talking as an ex-Muslim, is too oversimplified. Islam is definitely a factor in it, as is Judaism, in terms of it, the justification for Israel being the ancestral homeland coming from a religious background. That's undeniable. And it's also undeniable that there's a lot of anti-Semitism rooted in Islamic tradition. But to say it is just Islam, I think is honestly being very flippant about a lot of people who just want to lead normal lives. And also, I have to make the argument that there's a lot of people that have been driven to Islam and to Hamas specifically because they see no other recourse for hope in their situation. Again, I don't support Hamas. I don't like violence as a solution to this. But we have to see where people are coming from and see it from not just like a black and white perspective of, oh, they're evil and Palestinians are evil and Israelis are good, because that's not going to do good for anyone, honestly.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things I'll say I'm deeply frustrated with right now, is it does feel to me like a lot of discourse has become much more narrow, much more shallow. And I think that is only to the detriment of everybody. Like, anybody that wants to stand up and take the side of, kill more people indiscriminately on any argument, on any war, on any ideology, like if that really is your position, let's just make that known from the beginning, and we can put all of you in a different camp, because we might have nuanced disagreements on this military operation, that military operation, border crossings, whatever. We can go through all of that for as many freaking conversations as we need to. But we have to make sure, again, that there is that line of extremity there. And if you're on the side of, let's just keep killing them, I'm going to be like, hey, we're not on the same team, right? We need to get back to a place where we had more nuanced dialogue, because otherwise we are going to continue to see Israelis die, Palestinians die. We are going to continue to see Russians dying, Ukrainians dying. We are going to continue seeing all of the hate and violence that continues to get perpetuated.
And if we want to break that cycle, we have to change the kinds of thinking we have on the people we see as our enemies. There's no other way around it.
I get that's tough, y'all. I'm not expecting anybody to do it tomorrow, but we should try.
We gotta start somewhere.
Right. Because otherwise, if we don't start today, it'll be worse 5 years from now. That's the whole thing. So I just, again, if you really do prefer a world of more suffering, of more hatred, like, okay, just tell me. Just make that clear so I can go, oh yeah, that guy's I'm not with me, you know? The good thing is I really do believe, maybe I'm naive, maybe I am just a stupid, naive atheist, but I really do think the majority of people in this world are on my side on that. I really do. And I just think sometimes we get into situations where we get heated and we're incapable of remembering what our goal is and focusing back on that. So, you know, hey, that being said, I'm sure I'm going to do a call-in show before too long, and I'm sure I'm going to yell at somebody. You know, there's a couple of clips of me yelling at people. So
We're all only human.
just try to do better. You know, that's the amazing Maya Angelou, right? Do the best you can with what you know, and when you know better, do better. So that's all we can do.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, before we conclude things here, I did want to quickly mention something that some of you watching may have noticed, and I think a few people mentioned. Oh, one question for you first, actually. Do you have your own YouTube channel?
Yeah, I mean, technically, like if you go look up Secular Rarity, you'll see it's like a little thought bubble. And like I have a playlist of all the places that I've been on. Like this will be on there, but I don't really make any of my own content. I never have. Until recently, where myself and a bunch of other longtime atheist, activist, humanist in the Middle Tennessee area, we started a brand new nonprofit organization. So yeah, if you go to Secular Rising US, you will find a bunch of different videos of myself and other people chatting and hanging out. We just did this 4-hour live stream fundraiser thing last week. We had like 30 different guests on, and all kinds of people. Eve was framed, Holy Kool-Aid, Dr. J Bundy, Cynthia McDonald was helping us out. I mean, that I could keep going, but yeah, you'll find my dumb face somewhere, you know.
Yeah, great. And the link for that is in the video description below. But yeah, the thing I wanted to mention and just talk about briefly is that after I posted my video about Apostate Prophet's announcement, Apostate Prophet and his loyal companion, David Wood, did a live stream about my video last night, I believe. I didn't watch the whole thing. It was like 3 or 4 hours long. I got the gist of it from watching some of it. Always fun. Thank you, Zenith, for this comment, by the way. I'm here to support Sex Spirit. After watching AP Wood insulting him, I was aghast. Well, the thing is, that's what's going to happen, unfortunately, when you criticize people at their most deeply held beliefs. And I can honestly say I don't harbor any ill will towards Apostate Prophet or David Wood. And I talked about this in my video. I actually felt sad for Apostate Prophet and the journey he was going through, because I understand the reasons why he would be drawn to Christianity, and I understand the reasons why people are drawn to Islam. Like, the thing I had to just point out is that he explained his conversion as a leap of faith. The thing is, you can take that leap of faith to Islam, and the point I made is that you could take Apostate Prophet's justification for turning to Christianity and him saying, why not Christianity? You could take that statement word for word. And that's what Muslims say about the Islam, what turned him to the Islam he hates and that he knows has caused so much harm to so many people. And yeah, that's all there is to it. I mean, maybe I'll do a video going through all the things they said about my video. I don't know. Haven't seen it in its entirety yet. But that's just the way it is. I mean, I like that YouTube can be this, to be honest. It can be this forum where people can share ideas and arguments, and let the ones that, as you said so eloquently earlier, the ones that provide the most benefit and reduce the most harm are the ones that prevail. So I'm happy about it. And I mean, if they felt the need to make a video about what I was talking about, then it clearly resonated with them to a certain extent where they felt like they needed to address it. So
yeah, and I mean,
no complaints there.
You know, I mean, look, again, it's all cards on the table, right? If you're doing this at all, guys, you kind of like when people look at your dumb face. So, I mean, hey man, help us with the algorithm. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Post a chat. Look, if you hate me, I am telling you right here, right now, just spam the comment section for this video. Tell Secular Spirit in detail why you hate me. And send $5 too. And maybe I'll, come back on and or make a video specifically for him and, thank you or something. I don't know. Just keep commenting. Just
yeah, keep them coming. Keep coming. Yeah. And yeah, I just wanted to thank a few people who left donations and super chats. Thank you for that. Carl for the donation there. And NIA says, love your channel. Thank you for having the fabulous Secular Rarity on.
It's the nicest thing I've ever heard from
you. You've gotten more compliments than me in this live stream, so I don't know if I'm going to have you on again.
I get that. Yeah. I do the same, honestly. I have all these friends, but like I just try not to tell people too much because then they're like, hey, can he come on instead? I'm like, yeah, no, sure. They're great. Whatever.
But yeah, okay, let's see if there's anything else, any other questions. Okay, no, I think we're looking good. So I'll just check the poll question one last time. Can you find meaning and purpose in life without God? Pretty much the same split. 68% say yes, 32% say no. Well, there you have it. If a random YouTube poll question is anything to go by.
Oh, it is.
And it definitely is. That 68% is going to hell. Don't worry. AP is saved.
Right. You know what? We never did answer the question.
We never did.
Yeah.
Well, what I wanted to bring up is this was something that I found hilarious when I first watched it. I came to South Park a little bit late in life.
Oh, yeah.
I will say I don't watch it anymore. It's just a bit too silly for me. But there's a scene, I think it was from South Park. Maybe someone in the live chat can correct me or someone in the comments. See, he doesn't even know South Park. How does he know God? There's a scene where I think Kenny, who's the one who always dies, the one in the orange hoodie, he dies, and he goes through. He ascends to heaven, and he's at the gates, and he's with all these other people who just died. And someone comes out, like an angel, I guess. And he's like, "Oh, hello, everyone. You all came from all these different religions. Well, I'm sorry to say that the correct answer was Mormonism or something."
Yes.
Yeah, and correct answer was Mormonism, and then everyone else just trudges off because they're going to hell now.
Right.
They picked the wrong religion. And yeah, it just made me when I was coming up with the title, the thumbnail for this video, it made me think of that. Gotta pick the right one,
You do, man. I mean, it's your eternal soul is on the line, guys. You don't want to mess that up, okay? This isn't something, as trivial as like who you're gonna spend the rest of your life with, or like the whether or not you're like a positive influence on your community or anything like this. This is a serious choice, a real choice. Okay. I mean, where is your ghost body gonna live for the rest of eternity? You have to figure that out. It's important. So yeah.
I mean, Zenith suggests Pascal's wager. Practice them all to the letter.
Yeah. My uncle for years has kept religious iconography from about like 5 different major religions. Just kind of figures, I don't know. It might work.
I like this comment from Nature's Compendium. The South Park Canadians are anatomically accurate, of course.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, this is actually just a filter. I look very different as a Canadian.
That's right.
The American filter.
One of my favorites is all the tires are square. That's always the best.
Well, we're not as advanced as you guys south of the border. What can I say?
Well,
we'll get there with your tariffs. Don't worry.
I was gonna say, yeah, if you guys could become the 51st state, if you're lucky enough, like,
right?
How awesome would that be? I do. It's just. Oh my gosh, that's such a silly thing. And in part because like we've talked about, do we want to make Washington, D.C. a state? Should we make Puerto Rico a state? And then just like out of nowhere, it's like, yeah, we'll make an entire country, Canada, something that has multiple provinces, right? With how many different cities and so forth. Like, yeah, we'll just make it all a single state. It's like, that's so dumb, right? That's so dumb. Think about how large Canada is compared to every state. Everything that they voted for would be the case. They would outvote all of us constantly. Like, it's so stupid. It's so stupid. But hey, at least we finally got the Gulf back. That's what I'm thrilled about. Reclaimed it.
Silver linings.
You know, Mexico had been.
You have to take that leap of faith.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh.
All right, everyone. I don't want to take up any more of your time, Secular Rarity. It was a pleasure having you on, and thank you for coming on such short notice.
Yeah.
By the way, long overdue on the channel. It was a blast. And I will say I'm definitely going to have you on the channel again, even if you get all the praise and all the compliments. I'm okay with it.
We'll figure out how to direct that praise into super chats for you. You know,
Exactly.
Like maybe I don't know. I'll dance or something. We'll do something. You know, get people to donate.
Sounds good. And yeah, I just want to say, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Whether you agreed with us or not, please share your comments after the video ends. I really want to hear from everyone, because I think these questions that I'm asking, that we were discussing in this live stream, are really the essence of what I think is most important. Like this question of, do we need to turn to religion, whether it's Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, whatever, to find meaning in life? I think that's something we need to figure out individually, but also as a society. And if you want to find out more about this kind of stuff and see more of my videos, please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to like this video. And I just want to also thank all my Patreon supporters. I mean, if I'm not in it for the money, what am I doing this for, right?
That's true. That's true.
So yeah, thank you to everyone who has been supporting me, and a few of the people down there, they've been supporting me for years, like from when I was a teeny tiny little channel.
That's amazing.
And yeah, I'm eternally grateful for that support. And if you want to support the channel that way too, there is a link for the Patreon in the video description, and you can also make a one-time donation through PayPal. So yeah, thanks again, everyone, and thank you again, Secular Rarity. I'll be back with another video very soon. This is going to be Apostate Prophet month. All my videos are about Apostate Prophet. Just kidding. Yeah, so thank you so much again, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.